The title for this presentation is Metadata and will cover the importance of information about information when working with scientific data. My name is Stephan Nylinder and I'm a data steward at NBIS, the National Bioinformatics Infrastructure Sweden. Have you ever tried to reuse someone else's data? Well, did you succeed? Do you want others to reuse your data? Do you know how? Can you understand your own old data created in previous projects? Is it easy? The answer is it's all about metadata. So, what counts as metadata? Well, imagine this scenario. You have your favorite organism that you want to study. You collect samples from it. You need to document how the samples were collected, from which source, and during which conditions. Say that you want to obtain DNA sequences from your samples. How the samples were prepared and what instrument was used needs to be documented. Then you have the sequence files and do bioinformatics analyses to answer your research questions. How this analysis was done needs to be documented also. Think of metadata as descriptions of the data at certain steps of your project, a record of how something was produced. What does the reality look like? Typically, all your documentation is spread in various formats and perhaps in various places. You have a spreadsheet where information about the samples are collected. A lab protocol is described in some form of electronic lab notebook. There is a delivery report with how the sequencing was done. There is a report on how the bioinformatics analysis was done. And then you have a bunch of sequence and analysis files in storage somewhere, possibly spread in different places. How can you connect the sample information with the data files? And, more importantly, how can you describe all that you have in a way so that someone else can understand it? The answer is formalized metadata. To apply universal standards to your descriptions, making it understandable to everyone, everywhere. By using standard ways of describing how the samples were collected and how the experiments were conducted, we can make sure that we all describe the same thing by using contextual terms that are universally recognized and specific for your field of research. Use the same words by using terminologies that are agreed upon within the research community. Supply good levels of detail by using metadata templates that ensure a rich level of information. And how can you get access to these community standards, you might ask? The answer is by using repositories. Repositories that are tailored to specific data types, such as sequence data, have implemented appropriate standards on how the data should be described. Is that it then? Will repositories save the day and save you the work like some superhero? No, sorry. You still need to transform what you have into a more formalized way of describing things. Let's go through a simple example. As a researcher, you know that you collected your samples in a field in an area. So you name a column in your sample spreadsheet place and add the location. Seems sufficient, right? One location equals one metadata value. Everyone in the world should know what Strängnäs is. Does anyone need to know more about the location? In short, yes. In order for this to make sense to someone else, as someone who has no idea what Strängnäs even is, a repository will ask you to transform your column called place into 4 columns and to use specific column headings and give more detail about country, local region, plus latitude and longitude in universal decimal grades. This transformation is necessary and requires manual labor, but rich metadata really is the key to scientific reliability. Now that you know what needs to be done, let me give you good advice. Don't wait until the end of the project to transform your metadata descriptions into the formalized standards required by repositories. Collect the right metadata in the right format already when samples are collected and the data is generated. Use pre-made metadata templates when you collect your samples. Ensure that you have all metadata from the producers already when you get the data. And ensure that the connection between the samples and the data files, that is, how they are related to each other, is documented. Strike while the iron is hot, when everyone involved in the project, within the group as well as between collaborators and external data producers, are still answering emails. This way of working really minimizes the time you need to spend on metadata transformation and makes the information you have more reliable. The last advice given today has to do with early submissions to repositories. Since you already have everything in order, don't wait until the end of the project to submit your data. Instead, register your samples as soon as you have collected them. Register your raw data when they are delivered from the data producer, and set an embargo to keep everything private during the analyses. By doing this, you have a copy of your data protected against unauthorized access, and early submission is not time sensitive. But if you wait until the end of the project, you might become stressed if the submission process takes longer time than expected. Wouldn't it be better if, in the end of your project, when you are focused on writing the paper, the only thing you need to do is to update the release date in order to make the data public when the article is published? Hopefully, you now have a better understanding of the what, the why, and the how concerning metadata. If you need help with finding a good metadata template to use, or help with understanding what metadata is of importance to your project, or help understanding what a repository wants from you for that matter, contact us data stewards. Send an email to data-management@scilifelab.se. We can help with any questions you may have about metadata, data publication, and data management in general. Don't hesitate to contact us. We look forward to your questions. Thank you for listening. I hope that the concept of metadata is a bit clearer now, what it is and why it is important.